Welcome to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center's An Afternoon with the Author. I'm your host today. My name is Deidre Teagarden, and we are so thrilled to have all of you join us for this very special conversation with Shane Sato and Robert Horsting. Now, before I introduce our guests today, just wanted to share a few quick housekeeping items if you are new to our talks. We love to take your questions and get you the answers. So feel free to type those in on that little question and answer box at the bottom left of your screen. We'll get to as many as we can before the end of the hour. And this is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel in about a week. So we encourage you to check out the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center YouTube channel for this and other talks that you may have missed. And finally, if you are new to the center, please check us out on the web at nvmc.org. We have a great hour planned for you today, and I want to get right into it because we have a lot more than 1 hour's worth of things to talk about with these two gentlemen. But first, let me introduce our guests, beginning with Shane Sato. Shane Sato is a publicity photographer in Los Angeles, specializing in portrait photography. And over the past 2 decades, he's been working on images of Japanese American Nisei veterans. He started this project to share the stories that must be remembered for the next generation. The Nisei almost universally never talked about their war or camp experiences, so he wanted to share what they could not. With this series, he embraces their Gopher Broke spirit and shows the emotions they may not have been able to fully express themselves. These are portraits to show courage, patriotism, and strength, in contrast to the way Asian men in America are often portrayed. Next, we have Robert Horsting. Robert Horsting is an oral historian, Emmy-awarded documentary film producer. He has been a volunteer with the Gopher Broke National Education Center's Hanashi Oral History Program since 2001 and has helped record nearly 300 Japanese American World War II and Korean War veteran stories from across the United States. With Shadows for Peace, Robert also produces speaker forums to share the stories of atomic bomb survivors. Please help me give a very warm virtual Maui welcome to our guests, Shane Sato, Robert Horsting. Aloha.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you. We've been talking about this for a long time, and it's wonderful to finally have you both on the program. We're going to start off actually with a video that from Shane that talks a little bit more about the background of your project. So bear with me here as I try to share this.
I've been working on this project for the past 20 years. It's probably the hardest thing I'll ever do in my life. For me, this project is to help other families to talk like my family never had the chance to. Good. And nice smile again.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then Shane Sato's are for words never spoken.
Look at you.
Yep. Look at me. Good. Okay, Shig, you're looking right here. A little more. Good.
For years, he's been taking portraits of World War II veterans from the famous 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Battalion, and the Military Intelligence Service. Those Japanese American troops who courageously fought for the same country that had imprisoned many of them and their loved ones. And while most of us have heard their stories, their families have not.
My family, we never spoke very much. We didn't talk. My mom's side, I knew they went to camp. My mom would always say, oh, it's not a big deal. I was young. It didn't bother me too much. My dad would just not really say much. You know, as a kid, I started to believe that. I thought, oh, okay, it wasn't that important. History is not important.
History was lost on Shane. You see, after the war, it was common for the next generation of Asian Americans to assimilate, to blend in at all costs.
Your friend as they board the bus to leave the center
are going to new experiences and to a better way of living.
I didn't think of myself as Japanese, I just thought of myself as American. I thought that every kid ate Swanson TV dinners and chicken pot pies. I do remember when I was in about the 4th or 5th grade, I was doing a school report on Japan. The teacher said, oh, Japanese, it's too many syllables, so just abbreviate it to Jap. I brought that paper home to my mom, and she looked at it, and she was really mad, and I couldn't figure it out. So I asked her, Mom, why are you so mad? It's just Jap. It's just a very bad word. You should never say that, nor should it ever be taught. And I said, why? What's wrong with Jap? Why can't I say it? Jap, 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 Jap. And she just went ballistic and said, that's what they said. That's what they called us when they took us away to camp. And I remember my focus changed then, and I said, camp? What's camp? How come I didn't get to go to camp? And she said, you don't want to go to camp.
So when an opportunity to photograph these fading heroes arose, Shane took a chance. Over time, he noticed a change in himself. The more pictures he took, the more he understood his family's struggle for acceptance in America. History finally began to weigh on him.
For me, it really strikes a chord because their story and the history is part of my family. To have to prove that they were loyal Americans to a country who actually put them in prison just because they were Japanese. Could I do that? And I have to say, I don't know if I could do that.
What's special about this book is that the pictures are mixed with those unspoken words, those stories and emotions many of the veterans kept just to themselves, until now.
Right there. All right.
Is it on?
Yeah.
The Medal of Honor ribbon.
You know, for Christ's sake, I haven't seen you in a long time. We're joining the army again, I guess.
For the veterans, this is one last chance to put on their uniforms.
Can't believe that he's gained so much weight and nothing fits.
The fact that Jimmy came, I was super excited because I knew that would be the last time he ever puts on his colonel uniform. And he said he gained weight. He just got out of 10 cancer treatments. So he's eating well, which made me really happy that it didn't fit him.
This one fits. This one does fit, yeah. This is going to be good.
Oh, this is
his jacket.
wow, that's great.
Once they had the uniforms on, it did change their persona. It did change how they felt.
Put it on. You forgot how heavy they were, didn't you?
It seemed like they were back in that time. They felt that pride, and they definitely had that strength. It showed a different side to them that they don't always show everybody. These are Nisei Japanese men. Luckily, I'm able to somehow draw some of these emotions out. Otherwise, they would all just stand there motionless.
Pull that in through there.
We were up to his room, and I said, well, that's a Class B uniform. You can wear that. He says, yeah. I think he was real proud to put it on.
The race against time for them to see the book is definitely now.
Frank Muramatsu, son of Sukhoi.
Not long after his book was published, Shane was able to give his book to veterans and their families. The impact was immediate and profound.
Oh, I feel very proud. A little sad too. I miss him a lot.
The picture shows him perfectly. That's Frank.
That's when I used to be.
It was very meaningful, especially these older guys. I consider myself young at 91. It's a good way to preserve history.
I hope that we learn from our mistakes of the past and internment and anything that's close to that that never happens again. This happened just 70 years ago. History can repeat itself if we don't continue and remember these stories. Many Nisei fought and died for my future. They went go for broke. And now it's my turn to carry the torch and help the younger generations remember them and keep their spirit alive.
Thank you for sending that video over. And there's so many questions. Before I start with any questions, I just have to say that when you first look at this book, it's beautiful. The photos are exquisite. And then you start reading the stories next to them, and it takes you to a whole new emotional level. And I hope that I see you have some boxes behind you, Shane, and I hope that everybody gets these books, because it's so much more than a coffee table book. It's history and humanity and poignancy. And thank you so much for putting this together.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I want to start off a little bit more about your background, and then Robert, we're going to get to you. Shane, you have family both on the mainland and Hawaii, and in the preface of your book, you talk about being really proud of being both Katonk and being a Buddha head. And so I thought, could you just give us a little bit more insight onto your background?
Well, my dad's side was originally from Maui, in the fields up by upcountry near Pukalani, I guess. My mom's side is from Visalia, California. Farmers, Visalia is near Fresno. And so their experience is obviously much different than my dad's, where my mom's side of the family had to go to camp. They went to Poston. My dad's side of the family, some of them fought. My uncles fought in the 100th. And that's also the reason why I always wear an aloha shirt during these events, because I always tried to pay homage to the 100th when they were the first to volunteer. And my uncle, I never heard this, but my uncle would always say that the 100th came first. And so I try and help people remember that by wearing the aloha shirt. So here's to you, uncles. But yeah, my family in Maui never really talked much about the war at all, but neither did my mom's side, for that matter. But it is interesting that I come from both sides, and I remember the first time being called a katonk when we were visiting Hawaii, and I'm like, what's a katonk? No one ever explained that to me, but they were arguing, oh, is he because my dad was from Maui, so am I a katonk still? But I was a katonk.
That's great. I love the preface to the book. Robert, I want to talk a little bit about your background. You are not AJA. And I just wonder how these stories made their way to your doorstep, and a little bit about your background as well.
I am Hapa, but I'm Dutch and Indonesian, and actually born in Amsterdam and came to America when I was pretty young. But I had one JA friend, David Honda, in Santa Barbara, and when I first moved to LA in 6th grade, there really weren't, I don't really recall any Asian kids in my 6th grade class, or really even in school. But when I went to junior high and high school, there were plenty of Asians there. And I started hearing some of the family stories, and it just intrigued me. It was interesting to me. And excuse me, that plane. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Anyway, the stories really intrigued me, and I had an idea for a documentary that I wanted to pursue. And in doing some of that research, I got cross-referenced to Go for Broke as a resource, and that introduced me to the Haudenosaunee Oral History Program, which I've been a volunteer with since August of 2001, and then actually on a trip to Hawaii in January of 2002 is where Shane and I met. He was there to do some of these photographs, and we started talking. We hit it off, and over the years, I would share stories that I thought were interesting, that I thought he'd appreciate, and so when he made the decision to in 2014 that he wanted to put a book together with all these photos he'd accumulated, he asked me if I would help him write, and that's how I got involved with this. It's been amazing, you know.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the stories and things that really stood out to you. So you actually both met in Hawaii.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. Very nice. So Shane, getting back to you, you've spent 20 years of your life putting these beautiful books together, such a labor of love. How did you do that? Did you do it simultaneously with your day job? And I'm curious, when did this project kind of take over and take over your day job? Tell us a little bit about that journey. I'm sure it did.
Well, in the beginning, I'm always like to take portraits, and I always like to take portraits of things that interest me. So these stories and the men always kind of interested me. I wanted to do a series about them. And so probably around 1999 is when I first started to take some of these photos. They were done in black and white, and they're the ones that you see with in black and white, and they're wearing their veteran uniforms, Go for Broke club shirts. So those are the ones I first started with. After I think I finished that in about 2 or 3 years, and I already had quite a few portraits, maybe about 40 to 70 portraits, I guess. I decided to continue the series. And this time I want to really make it more individual, more about the people themselves and the veterans. And so what I did is I tried to take their photos in their uniforms. Obviously that was a tough challenge because many of their uniforms were either gone or they didn't fit in them anymore, or it was a challenge to try and find them, and also to get them to even wear the uniforms. A lot of the people did not want to wear the uniform again. So over the years, I collected different uniforms. Some of the men did have theirs and can actually fit in them still, but we ended up recycling a lot of the uniforms and doing different shoots with some of the same jackets. If you look closely at the photos, you'll see that we use the same ones over and over again. I don't suggest you do that, but the photos are definitely, I always tell people it's meant for the visual impact. We're not trying to be a history book and show this was this, that was that. And there's no way I could have come up with that many different uniforms. It was really for the visual impact to show people that these were the men that fought in World War II. So when I continued that series, this is probably around 2007, it was very difficult to get people to participate in the project still. People go, oh, why did it take so long? You know, you just ask the guys and they, you know, take the pictures. But if you know Nisei men, especially, they do not like their picture taken. You'll get a few, you know, anomalies here and there, but for the most part, they want to stay low. They don't want the spotlight, and they don't want to be singled out to take a photo. And so it took a long time for me to get these photos together. I remember going to a clubhouse. This happened to be in Hawaii at the 100th Club. And I would sit there going to one of their nights where they're having their little get-togethers and drinking, And I would say, oh, can I take your portrait? And that guy would go, oh, I'm not important. Go ahead and take that guy's portrait. He's important. So I'd go over there and talk to him. Oh, I'm not important. Go with that guy. And so I'd go in a big circle all day like this and not get any portraits. And they would just, I don't know, they were probably just getting rid of me or just wanted to laugh, see this guy run around. But every once in a while I'd get a few, and it would just so slowly build momentum. I do have some funny stories about that later, but for the most part, that's why it took such a long time. It was only later in life when I started getting the help of different people in the different areas, as well as Robert here in Los Angeles. But we had a lot of people that would get the groups together, and I think they were the veterans were more open to do it as they got older. Maybe it was seeing the grandkids running around, or maybe they felt it was time to share their story or to take their picture. But my project got much more momentum in the last 6 to 8 years than it did for the first 8 years, for sure. And so that part definitely was fortunate that I was able to start when I did and continue it and finish it.
Robert, how difficult was it for you to get the stories? You know, if people didn't want Shane taking photographs, how did they feel about you coming and asking their stories?
Actually, that was a combined effort. You know, we did utilize like the Hanashi Oral History Program interviews. We looked to different organizations, the 442nd Club, the 100th Club, different organizations and NBC in Seattle to see what existed when we identified who we were missing from the photographs that Shane selected and who we needed to research and what kind of stories we could do. And in some cases, some of the photos that he really liked, unfortunately, there was no existing interview. And so we had to tell a little bit more of a generic story, something maybe a little more history based, but tie it in to the personal experience of that person based on, the unit they served in and what action they were involved in some cases. And otherwise, we told a more personal story because, as you notice, not everything is a war-related story. There are tidbits that, one of Shane's favorite story is a total baseball story unrelated to war. And so, we tried to blend in some of those as well.
We really tried to keep the stories personal when possible. And because I never wanted to make a history book. And I tried to make that clear. It was basically a photo book that we really tried to focus on the individuals that happened to be in the war instead of the war and these are the men who fought. We really wanted to try and make it so their personal stories so you as a reader can relate to them better. And that was really an important focus for me. So when we tried to get a personal story, things that you would not hear in history books. And then if that wasn't possible, then we would default to the history and some other stories.
Well, I know you were over here on Maui taking photographs, and we have some behind the scene photos. So Shane, I'm going to bring up a couple of these photos and have you talk to us about them. But I guess I'm going to pull up a photo here. I think this is Willie Goo. But I want to ask you, so when you were to Maui to take the photos, did you rent a studio? Where did you take these photos?
No, we didn't rent a studio. Basically, when I would shoot these photos, I would go anywhere I could in any city to make it work, usually a hotel room. But in this case, I still have family in Maui. So I was lucky enough to use my Auntie Endo's, Keiko Endo's house with my cousin Carol and Mark. And we used one of the old rooms. I guess it was an old bedroom. And we started shooting some there. But then the lights started getting a little dark. So I went outside over here to their carport. I mean, it was full of stuff and things like that. But the light was good outside. And then so we switched out and shot right over here by the laundry machines, and we moved the laundry out in the back so they wouldn't get too embarrassed. But we were able to shoot right there on Papa Street. That was her house.
That's
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, right in Wailuku there. So yeah, so this is in the carport. This is Harold here. And yeah, we cleaned it out. And like I said, as long as the light looks nice, I'm able to try and manipulate it and get the kind of look that I wanted. The feeling and the personality is mostly what I'm trying to get. The background, well, as you can see, it doesn't look like that in the book. So we definitely changed it after that. But that is the raw image that I haven't shown anybody, and I usually don't like to.
But I think this is the finished image, correct, for
Yes.
Harold Okamura?
Yes, that is. So yeah, we were lucky enough to have my aunt allow us to take the photos right there, and we had a good time with all the veterans that came over that day. And I guess everyone knew where the area was, so it was nice and easy to get to. So
right,
they kind of liked it. That's Dr.
Ohata,
and that was in the empty room that wasn't being used right there. So you can see the door and everything. But yeah, that's where we shoot.
And I think we have one more here of Mr. Masao Motoka.
Oh yes, yes. I think that was inside the house too. So yeah, there was only one window in there, and so we had, after that light started to change, we had to go outside. But I think that day we photographed about maybe 8 to 10 veterans with the help of yourself and with the help especially of Leonard Oka, who went out there and called these guys up and brought them to the house or talked to, and yeah, he really helped us a lot finding all the veterans. So if he's watching, thank you very much, Leonard.
And I know you sent this photo over as well, and this is your auntie, correct?
Yes, so that's my auntie, and that's my now wife, Claire. And I have a interesting story if you want to hear a little behind the scenes of this one.
We would love to.
So I had my camera bag, which is basically my entire life in the bag. And I had it at the house to keep it for safekeeping because I didn't want to, I was staying in, I think, what Maui Surf or one of the hotels over there, but I was afraid to leave all that in the hotel. And I also had another special thing in that camera bag, which I brought from Los Angeles, which was an engagement ring. So I brought that ring with me, did the photo shoot. This is the day we picked it up, I believe, from my aunt's house, took a picture. And I believe maybe the next day or so is when I proposed to Claire. And luckily she said yes. So she is now my wife. And I proposed to her on Maui, on that photo trip in 2016. Yeah.
Wonderful. And yeah, so, and I forgot to say also that a little birdie told us that today is your birthday. So
oh yes.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to me.
Yeah, happy birthday to you. You know, I think that this question is for both of you really, but for Shane, you were here in 2018 and you did a book signing and a lecture, and you were able to give the books to so many of the surviving veterans and also family members. Shane, first, how emotional is that for you to be able to share these beautiful works of art with the family and with the veterans when they were still here with us?
So yeah, it's kind of bittersweet because we lose a lot of them as the book is being made. In 2018, the same time as when you saw that video, that was in Seattle. And when I came up here, up there to Maui, I do remember, handing the books over to them. And for me, it's very important because it's important to pass on the history and to see their faces and to see how important it is very important. And for me, it's even more so because the younger people can look at these portraits and now remember these men of who they were and who they are. And hopefully to pass on that kind of legacy is even more important for me for the younger generations. But you know, when I'm handing those books out to the family members as well as the veterans, it's very emotional for me. And by the way, with COVID, we haven't been able to always go out to the areas that we thought we were in 2021. So if there is anyone who hasn't received their family member book, please let me know, email me, and I will get that to you. Because during these past 2 years, we've lost contacts, we can't reach people. And if that is the case, I am definitely going to give you your complimentary copy.
Thank you for that. So Robert, how about you? How have these stories, how has this journey affected you?
You know, one of the things that really appealed to me when Shane approached me about helping him write for this project was that I immediately saw that this was another opportunity, another medium with which to share these veteran stories. And, you know, they're so undertold, and in great part, it's their fault, so to speak, because they don't share those stories. You know, they were reluctant to talk. And, you know, with the Hanashi Oral History program, it was great that we were able to have a lot of these veterans open up and share stories. But the unfortunate part was that a lot of times the families never knew that they even interviewed, and they found a VHS tape or a DVD after the father had passed away, and that's how they found out that they even interviewed. So, you know, what a book of photography, this was a way to spread the story out and get it out in front of people that had no family history ties to these stories, but love photography or love a good personal story. And so, you know, it was really exciting to me to see this opportunity to share this story in a much wider way and along a much broader spectrum of people. And so it was really wonderful for me to see this way these stories got out in a much broader sense, and along with people that may have never come to this history had it not been for the photography.
And how many of the stories did you write?
Just under half. We're initially, the idea was I was supposed to write, and that was my purpose to do that, and things just happened. You know, both of us had personal losses and different issues during the course of it, and Shane ended up doing a whole lot more writing than he intended. And but you know, we're happy with the stories, and it was a good learning experience for me too on that, because I was more too detail oriented initially, and so it was a learning curve for me, because Shane really wanted it to be more easy reading, a friendly read, a casual read, and it was the right choice. It made it accessible, and it was a good lesson for me.
That's true. I mean, as you read these, it just leads you to the next one. And I think it gets back to what Shane was saying. You don't want this to be a history book. But so, Robert, I know all of the stories probably mean something very great to you, but are there any that kind of stick out to you as very special, or anything you want to share? I think I have some photos of a couple of the ones that you had talked about.
Yeah, the two that come to mind, one is Wat Misaka. A lot of the people in the Japanese American community or AJA community realize that you know, he's the guy who broke the color line for professional basketball in 1947. So you know, anybody who's got that information, they need to go to a bar and win a bet, because most people are not going to be able to name the first person who broke that color line. And but the thing that actually gave him the strongest point of pride was to win 2 national championships in basketball while with the University of Utah Utes in 1944 and 1947. They won the NIT in 1947 and NCAA in 1944. And that was really his biggest point of pride. And, there was a, Watt came out to LA in, what was it? Was it 2018, Shane? 2017?
Might be 2018 or 2019, yes.
So he came out to help raise money for the Budokan multi-use complex here with the basketball courts. And, there was an event being held, a luncheon by the Little Tokyo Service Center. And there were guys that had played basketball and stuff in leagues. And one of them, I remember saying, "Oh man, I wish I'd known about you when I was playing, because we could have bragged about you. We had a role model that we could talk about." Another person actually is Arthur Tasaka. And the thing that drew me to his story was, it was very emotional and very personal and kind of indicative of a way that a lot of these veterans are, that, he never really talked about his service to his own children, to his daughter in particular that I met. And this was during a shoot that we were doing with the Friends and Family of Nisei Veteran Reunion in Vegas. And I was in the hotel restaurant looking for some veterans to agree to come take their portrait. And his daughter just happened to overhear me, and they were just in Vegas. They weren't with a reunion. And so they asked if they could participate. Well, he had trouble. He wasn't really able to talk, but he was really overcome with emotion, posing in this uniform and participating for Shane. And this is such a regal kind of look. One of the things that she was told later on is, "Hey, did you know that your father was awarded a Silver Star?" And she had no idea. And one of the lines that I really liked in the book, having written, was that he really didn't share much, and when he did, it was at the request of his grandson. And even then, he only shared little bits of information as if it was classified material and they didn't have the proper clearance. And so, that was pretty true of a lot of soldiers. And when they asked about it, he said, "Oh, the Silver Star was no big deal, but he saved somebody's life." So to that guy, it was a big deal.
Sure, you heard many stories like that, and thank you so much for getting the stories. Shane, let's talk about the cover of the second book, because this is a great story. This is a great story as well. I'm going to share some pictures while you start talking.
So when we're taking photographs, I don't know what is going to be the cover or what picture I'm going to consider for the covers. And so we were photographing, actually Robert was part of this shoot as well. And we were shooting in Colorado, and the heat happened to go out in the church that one week, and it was like November. And so it was really cold. And so this man is Dr. Dick Momey, and I'm taking photographs in one of the rooms, and someone comes up to me and says, Shane, this guy, he doesn't want to take his photo. He's trying to escape. And I said, oh man. So I run and try and catch this man. And, he's like 90, luckily, so I'm able to catch him. And I said, what's wrong? How come, why don't you want to take your photo? And he's like, I don't want to take my photo. I'm like, someone tricked me to come here. I don't want my photo taken. And I'm like, oh, well, how about just come on back and let's try and do this. So he was trying to escape. And I said, look, I'm trying to take my photos, and I have to try and take them in a way that in the shooting celebrities, you really have to try and come up with something quick. And so when I'm coming up with something quick, I said, what are your hobbies, sir? And he goes, well, I think I'm a boxer. I used to like boxing. And I said, oh, that's great. Were you a good boxer? And he goes, yeah, I was pretty good. Do we have that picture of?
We do. Let me find that one.
And so this is Dr. Dick Momey here, and he was a champion boxer, and then we talk about that story here. So this is Dr. Dick Momey. So I said, okay, you probably, you probably want to get out of here. You probably want to hit me right now. He goes, yeah, I want to hit you. And I said, okay, give me your best shot. And then this is what we got here for the next shot.
Yep.
I think we saw it already, but this is him giving me the punch. So you can see he's having a good time right here. And after that, he loosened up, and he was much more receptive, and he went through the shoot. And so after we did the shoot, it came out to be one of my favorite photos, and it became the cover of the second book. And here's the cover of the second book.
Yeah, we're going to find that.
So with that being said, I always try and tell people that, being persistent and trying to make things happen for this project is something that I always try and do. And because of that, I was able to catch this man and able to create the cover. And it was one of the nicer stories that we had for the book there.
Yes, and we shared the cover a little while ago, and now it is being quirky and not wanting to show itself. But
well, it's right behind him.
It is. It's right behind you, Shane. Here.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Everybody, look. So yeah.
Here is Dr. Dick Movie in the cover of the second book. So because we were able to track him down, we were able to get this shot. So really proud of this one.
It's a beautiful cover. How has this journey affected your families, Robert? I mean, you can't just leave this work, at your office. How has it affected your entire family?
It was well, there's definitely a lot of time away. One of the things that we did for this second book, actually, to kind of widen the range of interest and cover stories more on the East Coast and Midwest. So we arranged to go to New York and do a story there. Actually, Arthur Tasaka was actually born in New York, but we got another veteran from New York. And we also went to DC. Terry Shima was one of the ones photographed there. And then we actually had quite a large pool over in Chicago. That time away and trying to also focus, it's definitely sometimes difficult to get in the zone. You're still dealing with life that's going on in the house. And at the time I was a caregiver for my mom. So there were times where it was hard to kind of meet the targets that we'd hit for deadlines of getting stories out. And there was a crunch, but all in all, we were still trying to maintain the quality of the stories. And so that was what really ruled our time and what we were able to put out, because that quality control was a really important factor. And, I would read my stories to Shane, and again, he would read some to me and see how how it rolled off, how it came off, and whether or not it met the criteria, or if there was something that we had in that needed to be changed. So it was a really interesting journey. And I'm really lucky. My wife Yoko is it's not her history. She's actually born in Japan, but was very supportive and has allowed me really to have the time to do what it took to get these 2 books out.
And how about you, Shane? We know Claire. Claire is lovely and supportive, but how has this journey impacted her?
Well, we got married right during the production of the first book, and
that's good.
Yeah, I remember telling the guys, Robert included, and my production team, I said, "Look, guys, I'm not going to be able to help for the next couple of weeks. You guys got to finish this." So we for hopefully during that time she was okay. She's had to go through a lot as well, because you can see this is our home which we're living in. This is my living room, by the way, which is a big pile of books. And we have we went through the wedding, and she allowed me to do the whole series, and then take off a little bit of time to get married and have a honeymoon. So it's kind of been a work throughout, but and for me it's been a great journey. I don't think I'd trade it for anything. I might have done things differently if I knew. I had no idea that life was going to be continued with the book and COVID and all this other stuff. But in reality, Claire's always been very, very supportive, and I've dedicated both books to her. And I'll show you that actually. Let's see here. She always, I thought it was kind of cool where I kind of made the Claire kind of small like that, but she always wanted her name bigger, but that's what she got.
Maybe for whatever's next. All told, how many portraits did you take, Shane? For these books?
In total, probably almost 200. But in the books, there's 160 portraits in both books.
And is there, with all the veterans you photographed, were there any that didn't happen, or anyone you had wanted and couldn't get? And I guess that question is to both Shane and Robert.
Well, yes, I was kind of, we were trying to get the late Daniel Lanois, and I was always kind of disappointed I was never able to get him. And then there was another time photographing in Seattle. I photographed a man, and then my cameras got stolen. And then I said, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go back right away. And I went back, and I believe like 4 months in that time, one of the veterans had already passed away. So you just obviously never know. And it's something that no matter how hard you try, I tried for years to get different veterans to take the photos. And I would never turn down anyone who said yes. I would take their photo. And I have a funny story if you want to hear about Oahu. So you can see in the video where I'm handing out the books. And in Oahu, I was handing out the books to the veterans at the club that participated in the book. And there was one veteran sitting there, and he's like, how come I'm not in the book? I'm a veteran. And the lady setting the whole thing up goes, hey, he asked you like 3 times to take the photo. You said no. And he said, well, I didn't know it was going to be any good. So there's been those cases too, but I was, I think, able to get out of the 160 veterans. Robert and I have, we really think that we've compilated the stories from the MIS to the 100th and we even talk about the No-No Boys, anything that related. There was some way we tried to put it in the book, and through, even though maybe your family members not in the book, I believe their stories live on through the other men in some way, shape, or form, and that's really important. What both Robert and I tried to do for the books.
One of the guys that I think would have been really wonderful to include, and you know, the first time I met him, I actually thought he was too young to be a World War II veteran, and that's Stanley Izumigawa. You know, the first time I saw him, he had this ponytail, you know, tied back, and he just looked so fit and young. And actually, I met him in 2004 there for oral history program, and I remember one of the veterans that we just finished interviewing saying, "Oh, so who's next?" And I said, "Oh, Stanley Izumigawa." Goes, "Oh man, crazy! He still windsurfs." And you know, the guy was like 82, 83 at the time, still windsurfing, and just an amazing athlete at that point. And he also happened to be a really good friend of Sadao Munamori, the first Medal of Honor recipient. And actually, I live in Glendale, California, and that's where he's now. He lived in an area that was unincorporated, but is now incorporated as part of Glendale. And when they done the research to verify that, to add his name to the honor roll, the person that came out to speak as a friend of his for this dedication was Stanley Izumigawa. You guys might be familiar with him, right?
Yes. And for those who don't know, we just opened on February 19th our new resource center, the Stanley Izumigawa Resource Center, from which we are broadcasting today. So thank you for that story, Robert. We do have a couple of questions, so let me pop those up right now. Actually, Carrie Kababa says, "Happy birthday, Shane. You're my birthday buddy, LOL." And Christine says, "So interesting to hear how difficult it was to get the Nisei veterans to agree to participate. It sounds just like them. Sadly, so many stories are lost. Who were the first 2 or 3 who let you take their photos or listen to their stories?"
So the first 2 or 3 were set up by the by Go for Broke National Education Center. This is in early, maybe late 1999, when we first started to do this project. And so they had already talked to a lot of their veterans, probably Young Oak Kim, Don Secchi. I don't remember who the first veterans I photographed. I don't remember if I started in Los Angeles. I know we went to Hawaii. That was probably one of the last ones, but I'm gonna guess it was the lead. It's always the leaders that go first. Let them take your picture, and then they go, "Oh, you know, Don did it. Okay, I'll go do it." And that's kind of how it goes. And the other thing that I did find, another story which I'm sure you can agree with, is every time I went to these different areas, I found that all the veterans will listen to a lady. They won't listen to a man. They won't listen to me. They won't listen to Robert. But when they have a lady that says, "Okay, you're going to do this shoot," I have never got so many people just show up when they just said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do," and they just come. So in everywhere I go, it's always been the ladies, but that's been setting up these shoots. And I always appreciate all that work, but it's kind of funny. That's just kind of been the norm. But yeah, I don't remember who was first, but I definitely remember it was always in every city. It was the leaders that stepped up to the plate first.
Shane, what are you working on now, and/or what's next?
Well, this right here is behind me is pretty much what's next. But we're happy because we're starting up our exhibitions again. We have an exhibition in Washington, D.C. in a few months. We're hopefully going up to San Francisco. We're having talks like this all the time, and we're trying to continue the stories. We're going to have something with Disneyland, and then we're also having some other heroes with Hall of Heroes in Costa Mesa. So we're definitely trying to travel and do more of these talks, as well as be able to go to exhibitions and present the books out again. For
and
sale.
You'll be here in October and November. We'll be doing an exhibit of your work, and then you'll be here in November to do a book signing and a lecture. And so we have books, the first book, we have a handful of the first book available here at our center on Maui. And if people are interested in purchasing online, they can go to shanesato.com.
The gopherbrokespirit.com.
Gopherbrokespirit.com.
Yes, but if they look at my website, my information's on the Facebook as well as Instagram.
Great. We want everyone to buy these books because, as I said, it's so much more than a coffee table book. There's stories of humanity. Robert, what is next for you, or what are you working on right now?
I've been working on a proactive medical series that we've been trying to launch for quite a while. Different factors that are out of our control have kind of stunted that possibility, COVID being a big part of that. I'm also trying to complete a documentary I've been working on for way too many years and put aside for a while. The working title is Voyage to the Unknown, and it's about a 1943 prisoner exchange, one of only two to take place during the war, as far as between the Japanese and US governments, and the story of some Nisei and their Issei parents who were part of an exchange for Caucasian Americans, and their story of being in Japan, or in some cases Manchuria, and how they made it back to the US. So
I forgot,
yes.
One more thing. I am a Poston, the camp Poston board member, and we just got word that we are going to be having a live pilgrimage this year. So that's going to be happening, I believe, October 19th. Is that the correct date, Robert? We just got word.
You told me. I think you did say 19th through 21st or something.
So that information has not even been out yet, but we'll be working on that. This is my mom's Poston yearbook here, and so we'll be out there and promoting the book, as well as trying to get people to come out and see the camps.
Good. I can't believe it's been an hour. We all, the three of us, knew that there's a lot more information than an hour will allow. I'm going to come back to each of you in just a moment, first with Robert, and then we'll end with you, Shane. But just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to let you know that next month, our afternoon with the author is going to be Gail Okawa with her new book, Remembering Our Grandfather's Exile. That is actually going to be a hybrid event. And if you are interested in coming in person, please give us a call at the center. You can check out our website for all the details, but it will also be available via Zoom. So we definitely hope that you join us. Robert, I'm going to come back to you first. Why is it important to tell these stories?
It's important because too many people don't know it. Even family members, I can't count how many sansei, yonsei have told me they know nothing about their World War II veteran family member, that they either didn't ask. And a very typical line is, oh, they never talked. You ask the Nisei veteran, oh, well, they never asked. And so there's that impasse. And a lot of times, the the Yonsei or Gosei have the opportunity actually to bridge that history while these Nisei are still around or veterans are still around, to open that bridge of communication, to ask that question, what did you do during the war? Or what was your life like growing up? So that they actually are that conduit for communication between their parent who could never get the story and that grandparent who is now looking to educate and be a grandparent and willing to speak. And so, the more people ask, don't take that first no, keep asking, And I just want to give a quick shout out to, along those lines, to Glenn Hajiro, and also I want to thank Leonard Oka, because he is one of those guys that actually got the veterans to talk to us, and he's also done that for Go for Broke, the Hanashi Oral History program. So thank you, Leonard.
Thank you, Robert. And you have a slew of people just writing in saying thank you, wonderful, can't wait to see the DC exhibit. I'll share these with you later. But thank you so much. Shane, Sato, some closing remarks, whatever you wish them to be.
Well, for myself, it's the same as Robert said. I made these books not just for the veterans, and realistically, I was thinking it for myself, where I did want to create that bridge where the family members or their kids can talk about some of these things. And if you have the book in front of you on the coffee table, they can say, oh, who are these guys? Well, hey, well, you know what? Uncle did this, or this is what the Japanese Americans did. Things that no one ever talked about in my family. And I hope that won't be the case for the new generations, that they'll be able to talk about it and they'll all know these stories, because that's the only way we're going to be able to keep these generational stories alive, is if we keep talking about that. And I say that with any story. It doesn't have to be just about the war. It could be the stories that we talk about the book and their personal experiences, whether it be from camp or just how they grew up. And everything is important and should be shared and continued on.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing your amazing talent with the world, with all of us in these beautiful, beautiful books. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Shane, for taking your afternoon to spend some time with us. We look forward to seeing you, Shane, in October, November, and Robert, I'm sure there will be more chances to have you out here to Hawaii as well. So we, again, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining in, and until next time, ahui ho.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Deidre. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Maui.
Bye.